Hi, I'm Berenice, and this is Montessori Essentials. I'm here this morning with Berenice Sanson, who works with Monti Kids and is an AMI toddler trained guide. I'm really excited to talk to you today about Monti Kids and your background as well. So,
Hello, everybody. My name is Bernice, and I'm a 0 to 3 AMI trained Montessori teacher originally. I have worked in a classroom with 3-month-old children to 18-month-old, and then I've also been in a classroom with 18-month-old children to 3 years. So I've been able to really see the full spectrum of 0 to 3, which is great because it's so nice to see what we learn and see it in practice, and see everything that we believe in and study in the philosophy.
so Bernice, tell me, why did you choose Montessori training in the first place?
Yeah, so I've done work with youth, young children all over the world. I worked in Morocco, worked in Russia, and then I worked in my hometown, Louisiana. And it was really great, especially working in different areas, different cultures and different places around the world, seeing the natural development of children. So basically seeing what we talked about earlier about observing children, that they will, all regardless of where they live in the world, they do follow this natural progression, but how can we best support them to maximize their potential as they follow this natural growth? And so that's kind of how, when I discovered Montessori, I was like, this is the answer to everything that I've been seeing. And so I actually started as an assistant in an infant program and was just blown away.
Wow, where was that?
So that was in California.
Nice.
After I had worked at a French school, after I'd worked in different kind of programs in Morocco and Russia, and
Awesome.
when I just entered into that infant community, I was just like really blown away. Like when you see children and the things, like we said, that they're capable of and what they were doing, and they were such a young age, and they were using forks and spoons, and they were drinking water out of a cup, and
Amazing.
I was just like blown away.
Right.
So I just knew like right away I need to go and get trained and learn more about this. And
That's fabulous.
yeah, almost feels as though Montessori found me in a way. It was just like I needed to get a job, and I had been worked with young children, and I knew that's the path that I wanted to follow.
That's great.
And it's been great. It's been a great path for me. It's great to see what children are capable of.
Definitely. How did you start working in Morocco and Russia?
So when I was in Russia was when I was in university, and I studied Russian history. It was my major in college.
Okay.
And so I was kind of obsessed with everything Russian. And so for 2 summers, I volunteered at a summer camp in Perm, which is the sixth largest city of the Ural Mountains. So it's not a very large city, but it was a great experience. And so I spent a total of about like 6-7 months there, working for a summer camp for orphans and underserved children of the region.
Wow.
And so that was just an amazing experience. Just blown away by it. And then after university, I joined the Peace Corps, where I served as a youth development volunteer in Morocco, in a small village, like in the center of Morocco. I don't know, like kind of 5 hours inland of Marrakesh. And that was great. And the youth development was just kind of like an umbrella topic for anything. And that's kind of the power of the Peace Corps, is that you could go, and what you can bring to your community is unique. What the needs of your community are unique. And so that's, I continued to work with youth and women and early childhood education. And that was just amazing. And after, my experience as a Peace Corps volunteer, I went back to my hometown, New Orleans in Louisiana, and I'm half French. So I worked at a French school. And so I still was in early childhood education, and then found Montessori.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Funny enough, we have something in common there. I found Montessori by working in a school in France.
Oh,
We both got it while traveling the world. And it's funny because there's so much in America, but so many of us didn't get this growing up. And then we discover it and we're like, oh my goodness, I need to get on this, so that I'm ready as a parent, or that this is what I want for children. This is how I want to work with children. And it's great when you have that comparison as well. I worked in the education system in France, and I was the English teacher. So I worked my way down. I had started in Italy and did conversation classes with adults, and then moved to France and was working with the elementary age, and then worked for this French school with the 6 to 9 age. And then when I went back to California, I worked with the 3 to 6 age, because suddenly I'm in America and I've got all this childhood, education experience, but then it's a different category. And
Yeah.
I wanted to stay in Montessori. I just knew that was kind of the place for me. And I love to see what the children were capable of. It was just amazing. And how the environment supported it. That was just beautiful.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree with you. There's a moment sometimes in the classroom where you like we're talking about observation. This is one of my favorite things is when you truly just step back and everything is just flowing and working, and like maybe a child is watering the plants and another child sees like water dripping on the ground and goes and runs and get the broom or
Hmm.
gets the mop to mop up the water that they dripped, and they're all working in this flow and supporting each other. And besides learning like their fine motor and gross motor development and language, but also just being part of a community.
Right.
And as humans, we have a natural tendency to want to create communities and be part of a community. And
Hmm.
what's beautiful is that in that Montessori setting, you are part of a community and you are
Definitely.
an integral member of that, and the community needs you.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. Well, and now we're all part of the Montessori community as
Yeah,
adults too. So we
definitely.
get to go back and recorrect things as we move on as adults,
Yes.
which is great. So I love that. So, and where did you do your training, by the way?
So I trained at the Montessori Institute in San Diego, and
Lovely.
my trainer was Sylvia Dubovoy, and she was just wonderful. So
Oh, it's a fabulous training center. I
yeah,
liked them. I did a tour there as well. It was great.
yeah,
Nice. And a great place to live too.
yeah. It wasn't bad. It was beautiful. We studied at the beach, so
Oh,
that was
fabulous.
great.
I love it. Oh, that's awesome.
And so my journey with Monty Kids started actually as just an ambassador for them. I love their program. I love what they're able to offer families. And I began doing lots of parent and child classes, both for my infant community friends and then also for families who had toddlers. And with Monty Kids, I was always asked, parents would always ask me, what can we be doing at home to continue what we're doing in the classroom?
Hmm.
We're only coming to these parent and child classes, once a week. What can we do at home? We can't find materials like this that we can find in your classroom that we have at home. What do
Hmm.
these materials do? And so for me, being able to offer them Monty Kids as a resource was so wonderful,
Nice.
because it was a continuation of what was going on in the classroom, and that they could
Hmm. That sounds awesome. Tell me, were these weekly meetups, was that part of your school program or were you doing that for yourself?
So actually, both. So for the school where I worked, they offered parent and child classes both for infant community and toddler community. I did some classes with local boutiques I live in Southern California, so in the Orange County area.
Hmm.
And then I also just like with a friend just started doing like meetups for parents.
That's fabulous.
And the classes would, they wouldn't be specifically about Monty Kids. Maybe they would just be an example of what a Montessori classroom runs, and an introduction to Montessori. And then every week we'd maybe have a different topic. So whether it be language or gross motor development, sleep, feeding, toilet learning. So just totally a whole comprehensive, and just a great way to meet community too. And I thought it was so
Hmm.
wonderful that parents could connect and share their ideas and their resources through those classes.
That's fabulous. I love that you could do both of those. I certainly wish that was available to me when I was just having my first child. What I did is I was in Thailand and there was no birth classes, there weren't any parent meetups, and I went and did my training because I kind of wanted to understand more about my child, and I knew that this was the education that I wanted, and decided to kind of go for it. And I did the primary training because I already had a toddler at the time. So I kind of went, well, at least I'll catch up and I'll be ready by the time he's 2.5.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well,
But
that's so nice that you did that, because
Mhm.
I really believe that what we do in the classroom, it doesn't really, it does, do great things, but it only does like the most powerful things when the families
Right.
are educated as well. So I love that you just went out and, got your education.
Yeah, it was fabulous. I had wanted to be a primary guide before, and then I found myself living in Asia, and there weren't any schools and there weren't any training centers. So it was a really great summer trip, basically. And I'm really grateful that my husband and I were able to make it happen. What I,
Yeah.
what I really enjoyed as well it was at the school that I was at in Portland, the Montessori Northwest. They had summer programs that were going on at the same time for both the toddler and the primary training. And so since I knew that my school would have a toddler class, I would go and visit their classroom and take a look and talk to the students and talk to the teachers. And I was very impressed by what they were learning in that program. Would you like to tell us what goes on in a toddler training program a little bit?
Yeah. So, well, in our 0 to 3 training, so we learn a lot about, well, basically the first 3 years of a child's life are so important because 85% of the brain is formed during those first 3 years. So that just kind of, it sets the foundation for who the child will become as a citizen of the world and a human, adult later in life. And so a lot of our training is, besides studying, the importance and all of the science that happens in the brain, but also what can we do to prepare a proper environment to be able to give the child the best experiences for them to create themselves. And so in the toddler environment, we have lots of, we call them toddler and infant communities. So for children between the whole range of 0 to 3 years, we have what we call psychosensory developmental aids, which are Montessori materials is a much more simple way to say it,
Right.
or toys.
Mm-hmm.
So we use a lot. We use the word materials a lot in, I guess, the Montessori world because it gives more of a sense of purpose.
Right.
I think whereas toys sometimes the purpose gets lost, but they're very interchangeable. And so we learn about like how we can provide children with what the proper experiences are for them to solidify their skills and knowledge, and create concentration and be able to focus. And so in specifically a toddler environment, we do that with these kinds of materials, and then also through practical life activities. Practical life activities are huge in a toddler environment. So not only do they, allow a child to provide for their community and be part of the environment and feel a sense of pride and ownership, children are sensorial explorers at this age. So through practical life activities, they're working with water. They're feeling different textures. They're tasting different food when they're doing food prep activities. They are practicing their fine motor development. And also, most importantly, all of these, both the materials and the practical life activities, allow for repetition. And through repetition, a child is able to build their concentration, and through concentration and repeating activities, they solidify their skills and solidify their knowledge. And so that's really the way that we can support the child's brain development during these important first 3 years of their lives.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And also in the training, there's a lot of observation that happens, right? There's even more than in the primary training.
Definitely. Well, before you can even start, I should have mentioned that in the beginning. Before you can really even start, creating the kind of environment that you want for your child, you have to observe. It's Maria Montessori writes a lot about basically her whole theory about Montessori, and what's come to be now is based on her observations that she's done about children all over the world. And so based on the natural development of children, and when as a parent or as a teacher in the classroom, you're observing the children, you see what their interests are, and you create an environment through which they can, grow those interests. And this was like really stood out to me too in training was, if there's a child who maybe is having difficulties or maybe a bit challenging, it's not what's wrong with the child, it's what can I do with my environment to meet the needs of that child. And I love that is done through observation. So you just observe the child and you adjust to support that child and the needs of that child.
Definitely. And that's so important at home as well. As parents think, oh, I need to constantly be doing things, or teachers even think I need to be moving around, I need to help them. And the more we actually distance ourselves and sit down for a moment and kind of relax and then just watch, we can see that our children are capable of more than we thought that they were.
Oh, definitely. And I think sometimes, especially as adults, and I know as a teacher, and I can imagine, I'm not a mother yet, but I imagine you always want, to give the best and to make sure that your child is doing what we consider the right way. And that's also a big learning lesson, I think, for adults when we have to learn to step back and not interrupt and allow for their concentration to build without any distraction. And we may show them a way of doing it, but they might do that lesson or activity in a way that they're responding to a personal need that they have to do it that way. And so that's also a learning lesson for adults, is being able to step back and, breathe and accept that that's the way that they need to do that.
Exactly. Or they might not even pick up the lesson for another couple weeks, and they kind of we don't know what's going on in their minds at that time, but sometimes a child will have a lesson on something and they won't choose it for a while, and then they pick it up and then they know how to do it because they've seen other children do it, or they've been thinking about it, or they've seen you do it a couple more times, and it's pretty neat just to see how they just naturally do things.
Exactly. And like you said, it's all the power of observation. So you can observe that. What's wonderful too, and I'm sure we'll go into it with Monty Kids, is that they will kind of give you tricks on how to like rotate activities through the shelves. So like you were
That's
saying,
great.
maybe children are maybe less interested in certain moments. And so through observation and then through the tips that the Monty Kids curriculum offers families is how to set up the play area at home and how to rotate these materials to reignite your child's interest and support their development.
Definitely. So you've mentioned Monty Kids a few times, and it's a company that you work with, which is also founded by a toddler-trained AMI directress, and her name is.
So Zara Kassam is our
Uh-huh.
founder, and she is 0 to 6 trained. So
Oh,
she,
0 to 6. Great.
yeah, and then she is also just an early childhood education specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And she has worked in a classroom. She's ran parent and child classes, and then she also has 2 children of her own now. And so when doing parent and child classes, and then when having her own children, she was really hunting for materials that we studied about that she could provide for her children, and then provide for the parents of her parent and child classes. And then she
Mm-hmm.
realized that they didn't exist yet. And so she
Right.
decided, I love how powerful that is. She decided, well, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to go and create them myself. And so
Yeah.
that's how Monty gets started.
That's awesome. And it's so true. I mean, we do these trainings, and there's a few suppliers sometimes, but they don't always have the materials, or depends on the price. Sometimes it's out of range of most people's budgets, and it's so great that people can start to create businesses using their training. Because especially myself, when I started having children, I realized that my time for work, my ability to work changed drastically. And when you can create your own business and you can create your own hours and get yourself some help, that's kind of where all of us maybe want to eventually lead to, is like be
Yeah,
your
oh
own
yeah,
boss.
I definitely, ideally, and I think something that's so powerful is that I mean, there's so much with a Montessori education and background that you can do in the classroom as a guide and a teacher. But it's important to remember that there's so much more outside of the classroom
Mhm.
too, which is
Right.
what our founder Zara is doing with what you're doing.
Hmm.
And I think that is really powerful to remember, is that there's so much out there that we can do with Montessori and with families and community.
Definitely. And one thing that I find very unique about the way that Zara has set up Monty Kids is through these tutorials. It's really nice that there's little videos that come along with the shipments. And so basically, so when you sign up for Monty Kids, ideally you would be starting with an infant, and then every 3 months you get a package of age appropriate toys and little video tutorials to teach you how to use them or how to show them to your child. Is that right?
So correct. So our program starts when a child is born, so at 0 months,
Hmm.
and then But essentially, I don't want families who think, okay, they didn't start when their child was born. Is it too late to start? You can start whenever. It's
Hmm.
never too late to start, but we do want to be able to grow with your child and grow with your family. So, like you said, a family does receive a shipment to their home every 3 months. It has it's just a small box, and it has a progression of Montessori materials that are tailored to their child's developmental needs and their age. And as you explained, with this subscription, they also have access to our online portal, through which we have educational videos that help to guide them on what the purpose of the material is, how to present it to your child, what the benefits are, what you can do to support it, how to set up the play area at home, and as I spoke about before, how to rotate it to ignite your child's interest. I think what's also great too is that with the online portal and those guides, you also get a mini Montessori series. So just welcome, and then we really want to create a community. We want to make sure that we don't want to just send you something without you understanding the purpose behind it and how to
Hmm.
support your child's development. And so it's so much more than just getting a toy.
Right.
We grow. We want to grow with you.
Definitely. And then what happens when your child progresses to primary? What do you do with those toys after?
Yeah, so you can keep them, and then we also have a donation service where we have partnered with a school in the Dallas area that has a home teaching network where teachers go into the underserved areas of their community and go into the homes of these families and do lessons with them with old
Wow.
Monty Kids materials that
Oh,
families are
nice.
no longer using. So you do have that option
Hmm.
where we would send you a free shipping label, and then you could just send it directly to the program in Dallas.
Oh, that's so nice. And so who's running that program in Dallas? Are there Montessori teachers that kind of go and volunteer?
Exactly. It's actually the Lumen, I forget the whole name of it, but it's Lumen Montessori in Dallas.
Oh,
So I love,
that's great.
yeah, and I love that it goes full circle. So it's not as
Hmm.
though, we, like I keep mentioning community, we want to make sure that we're serving, all of the community. And that includes, everybody who has access, who maybe just doesn't have access. And I love that teachers will go into families' homes and give those lessons.
Oh, that's so fabulous. I wish that I had known about this when I was having my first child.
Yeah.
Then I would have used it for each child after, and it would just keep going. I mean, that's one thing that I do really appreciate about Montessori materials is they might be an initial investment, but then they last for forever, basically.
Definitely. And I know that, especially, as someone who's been in a classroom, and then I know Zara, our founder, and then a couple of other people that work with our team, we all have classroom experience. So we know the things that besides, knowing the theory and philosophy and the reasoning behind the materials, we also know the ways that they work and how they don't work and what are frustrating about some. And so we have really incorporated, and I know Zara thought a lot about the design of the materials and how they can still support the child's developmental needs and they have the same purpose as maybe what we learned in our albums, but maybe be a little bit tailored because we also want to be able to follow the rigorous safety standards that the U.S. has for toys on the market. And so this is a
Right.
surprising statistic, but only 4% of 0 to 3 years toys, so toys in general, not just specifically educational or specific to Montessori world, pass U.S. safety standards, which blows my
Wow.
mind because those are 0 to 3. They're sensorial explorers. Everything's in the mouth. And we want to be able to support that exploration because that's how they learn through these
Right.
experiences. But you also want to make sure that they're safe. And so I
Right.
love that we've created a program where children can, support these developmental needs and grow also in a safe environment.
Definitely. Yeah, I wonder what impedes them all from being passed. That's interesting. Probably they're looking at what would happen if there's no adult supervision,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
How interesting. And so can you tell us a little about the types of materials that they're making in Monty Kids?
Yeah, so we have materials that allow for, we have, I guess, a lot of key things about our materials that make them different from just like your regular little toy that you would get. Besides, I think most important that we have is the educational videos because, like I said
Mm-hmm.
before, none of what we do, at the classroom works unless families understand, and that goes for the same thing. You need to have education about the material.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the Monty Kids materials allow for isolation of difficulties. So a child doesn't can grasp and master one concept at a time without feeling overwhelmed. Additionally, the Monty Kids toys, because we are a kit in the subscription and each kit comes with a progression of materials, we grow with your child. So the
Mm-hmm.
concepts build upon each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why, we'll have a lot of people that maybe just want one, but we really want to have families understand that it's a progression and that
Mm-hmm.
once your child masters the skill to one thing, they are able to, fully capable to move on to the next.
Right.
Another thing that's really interesting about Monty Kids materials is they allow for control of error.
Mm-hmm.
So your child will learn how to self-correct, and that is just supporting your child's independence. The fact that they don't
Nice.
need to either ask you for help, they will self-correct, and that is a beautiful thing to step back and observe. It's
That
it's
is great.
it's very powerful when you see them correct themselves and recognize without ever having to step in. And that's what Maria Montessori writes about. A classroom is beautiful when you can step back and see the children working without you, and that
Right.
is self-correction is happening all over there.
That's fabulous.
Also,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Also, we want the materials are designed, not designed to entertain. They're designed to ignite your child's curiosity, creativity, support their development. And so there's so much purpose behind the materials. Additionally, we use natural materials. We don't have lights or plush materials. We really want to have it be simple and beautiful, and make these first experiences with your child's life so important.
Right.
And then also, it's not, a sensorial overload where your child might get distracted and break that concentration that we're trying to build.
Right.
I think is really important too, and I'll use the object permanence box as an example, but the materials, besides supporting fine motor development, you'll also see that they are in line with cognitive development as well. So for instance, the object permanence box, when a child is we learn about this in our 0 to 3 training, and we call these stages developmental crises. And so they're kind of like big tests that life throws at you, and you have to get through the hurdles to move on to the next step. And so when a child is around the ages, and when I say a number, it's fluid because every child's different, but maybe between 6 to 9 months when they're learning to crawl. So physically, a child is learning to move away from mom and dad for the first time independently. They also have to understand that mom and dad will still be there when they turn around. And so that's understanding the concept of object permanence. And that can also, you'll see many children go through this stage and start to develop stranger anxiety as well. And so they all coincide together. And through the object permanence box that we have for children between this age, children put a ball into a drawer and so the ball disappears. They have to open the drawer, and the ball is still there. And so not only are they, refining their fine motor skills as they're grasping the handle on the door, as they're dropping, the ball into the hole, and their hand-eye coordination, but they're also having that psychological development that's supporting them through this phase, this developmental crisis. And so I love that Monti Kids materials support fine motor development and also your brain development. It all goes together. It's a whole experience.
Right. And then the materials themselves, they're made out of wood. They're things like mobiles that you can hang above your child from birth, basically that first 6 months where they're kind of mostly laying on their back. There's these beautiful mobiles and a really nice holder, a nice wood holder that's kind of like a little teepee without the cover. And the child gets to look at it around 18 inches above the face, and they're just getting their focus developed, and they're making neural pathways as well. And then it goes on, once the children want to grasp, you can put something for them to grasp in front of them. And then there's like rattles and little kind of manipulatives, little things that they can roll and touch, and then moving on to like object permanent boxes.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned everything from our level 1 kit. So that is where you get the mobile stand, which is amazing because it adjusts with your child's height. So like you said, we want to start at a much lower height because of their eyesight and what they can see. And so our mobile, the home gym will adjust. You have legs that you can adjust it, so you don't need to go and get another one. You already have it there.
So
and then through the videos and through the power of observation, you will know when to rotate the mobiles because there is a progression. And they support different needs. And like you said, the same thing with the rattles. Our rattles, it can be very difficult to find a rattle that is light enough for a young child to actually hold. And so our rattles, when you feel them, they're the perfect weight for a young child.
Nice.
I also forgot to mention that all of our materials are non-toxic. And so that's part of the, the passing the safety standards. But just to reassure all families out there, because I know what we're thinking about. Everybody puts everything in their mouth, like we talked about, and being sensorial explorers. So we want to make sure that they can do that, but within a safe environment.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. And when I had my child, I was reading Montessori from the Start, which is an excellent book.
Yeah.
By Lillard Polk, and I think her daughter wrote it with her as well. And fabulous, fabulous book talking about Montessori manipulatives and the mobiles and how the brain develops and how you can child rear with the Montessori style and philosophy. It was my Bible. And so I had to make all these mobiles myself. And it is very possible to make them, but it's also, you have to go and find the materials, and it's sometimes time consuming, or like with the Munari, it's a really beautiful geometric black and white mobile, but it has this neat kind of glass globe, and those things are very hard to find. I never found one of those. And so I kind of always just improvised, and I really love the mobiles that Monti Kids are making, and I think it would be such a nice gift to have for your child. It's such a great thing for brain development. And just all of those materials, like you said, they're very hard to find, so it's nice to have it all in one place.
Yeah, I agree. And that's so funny that you mentioned that about the mobiles, because you definitely can make them during our training. And like, the training is challenging, and it's rigorous, and you're learning so much. We did have to make materials, and had to make when I had to make two, and the Minari was one that I made. And like you said, it has that beautiful ball. And actually it's so mathematical, because every measurement of all the different pieces is based off like the radius of the ball.
Right.
And that through everything that was so challenging about training, making the Minari was probably the hardest thing for me about everything.
Oh yeah.
And so I love, like you said, besides all of like the beautiful benefits of the mobile, I just love that with Monty Kids, you just get them all, and it's very easy to hang them up. We have
helpful.
adjustable Velcro that you can get, that we send, that will help you to change the level as you put them in. And I would just, for peace of mind, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, and I remember trying to do the graded colors. Like there's a mobile that's it's like a sphere, and you choose maybe 4 to 6 of them, and you grade the colors. So it's like light yellow to dark yellow, or light blue to dark blue. And so I went out and I got embroidery thread, and I was wrapping these things, and it really, like, each ball takes like a good 15 minutes if you don't mess up and have to redo it and get it to go the correct way. And I like that the ones that Monty Kids makes there, it's like a crocheted cover on them.
Yeah.
And they just look really nice, and it's the perfect creation.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think that probably every like 0 to 3 Montessorian in the world has mobile nightmares from making them. So it's nice. Yeah.
Right. I remember being very fascinated with that classroom, and just coming over and chatting with the students when I was doing my training, and they had their, sewing machines out, and they were hand sewing things. They were making toponcinos. It's like this little kind of pillowcase to hold a newborn in, which is great. They now make those for the Ergo baby, luckily.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
It's like an insert.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, constantly making things, constantly sewing things and figuring it out. And because those materials aren't readily available in most places.
Yeah, it's basically where I learned how to do all different kinds of sewing. I used the sewing machine for the first time in my training.
That's great.
And we also had to make a dining set, so a weaning set, and then Monty Kids, we call it a dining set, and that is kind of like your child's first place setting. And so we had to sew that, and I really like that. Again, in your Monty Kids level, you just get that, and it's already made. And,
that's so nice.
And it's just wonderful.
That's great. Now tell me, as Monty Kids grows, have there been like communities that kind of get together and do like play groups together and meet up with the materials, or are there any Facebook groups for people that are using the materials to discuss how it's going with their children?
Yeah, so we have, when you join the Monty Kids community, you also have access to our Monty Kids Families Facebook group. And that's a really nice resource. We share information, different meetups, different, like parents will have questions about materials. People share nice like pictures about what their children are doing. It's just nice to see the community that's out there. Our owner will sometimes share pictures about her children using the materials. We'll share maybe, events that are happening that we want to make, invite community to, classes that are going on. We have had ambassadors that have done classes with Monty Kids materials. We have an event that will be happening in Denver, just a meet up too with Monty Kids, and come and explore the materials and meet community members. And we're hoping to continue that and continue to grow. We definitely want it to grow our community, and it's word of mouth. That's how things spread.
Nice. And then, do you go to all of the refresher courses like AMI, AMS? Do you go to a lot of those as well?
Oh yeah, so we are at AMI. We go to AMS, or we went last year. We'll go again this year. It's at the end of the month. We also try to do as many baby shows that we can go to. So let's see, for instance, next week, actually this week already, Wednesday, we have the biggest baby show event in LA, and they have and that'll be nice. It'll be all expectant mothers.
Fun.
We'll do like a baby show in New York, and just really want to spread the word that learning can start at home, and we want to be able to empower families to start their education from birth.
That's fabulous. And what a great preparation for you as well to have done this training. And by the time you have a child, you'll be so much more ready.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I have all the Monty Kids toys now, so I'm pretty set.
Oh, nice.
And yeah,
That's great.
now I just need to work on having the child, and then it'll be good.
Right. Yeah, I think that would be interesting to have a lot more Montessori toddler trained guide chats, you know. How did it feel once you had a child? Did you feel more ready? You know, did it go how your training taught you?
Yeah,
I'd be
I think
very curious.
that's definitely a great idea. I love speaking to like my friends who
Hmm.
are 0 to 3 trained and having children or had a child and what they're doing at home and what's working, what they've adjusted for their, because you know you have to be able to adjust to your own home environment, or maybe you live in a different climate, so you can't do certain things outside or inside. And I love listening to the ways that people create Montessori in their particular environment based on their unique situation. It's kind of the power of Montessori is that it's not, you know, you have to do it this one way in this, you know, exact place. It's so everybody can be a part of Montessori and live a
Hmm.
Montessori inspired life,
That's
regardless of where you are, or what kind of situation you live in.
definitely.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Bernice.
Of course.
And for those of you that have enjoyed what we've been talking about, definitely take a look into the Montessori toddler side of education and look at montykids.com and see their beautiful materials and sign up and check it out. Take a look. There also you can contact Bernice and you can contact through the Monty Kids website if you have questions or if you want to know more about these groups and meetups and classes. And when you buy the materials, you get this little training program that comes with it.
Yeah,
So
great.
it's so nice.
I look forward to hearing from you all, and thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today.
Sounds good. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.